Okay, so we're walking through an example of a trip page that's set up for an application process. So here we're looking at, I've made the changes here. When I click on that, that pops up. Obviously, the call to action, apply to join us. That's the name of the trip. I've changed the name of the call to action to be apply now. And I've changed the overview to make it clear that they need to click apply now to register and then apply on the left to start the application process. They're just wanting them to not pay their deposit until their application has been approved. So we're going to come in here. It says register below to get access to the application. So I'm just going to go through that. And here I've changed this prompt to ask how they heard about us. You can change that to be any prompt you want, but remembering that this is just the registration process, you're trying to keep it really simple and put all your complex questions onto your application form. So in this case, I'm gonna leave that blank and I click apply now. So you could decide that you actually want to change that to say registered. And so here you can see that it says before paying, please complete the application form by clicking apply on the left and completing the apply to attend task. Once done, you'll be notified within 5 days of acceptance and you can return to pick your room type and pay your deposit. So we click on apply to attend. And also that message that I just showed you is also emailed to them. So that content is stored here under settings. And so that is going to be here before paying, please complete. You can also choose to have that message show in the pop-up instead of just on the invoice. Either way, it's always emailed them to them. So if they do get interrupted in this process, they will get an email reminding them to click back in and complete their application form. So this message is telling them to click on apply on the left and apply to attend. So from here, they can click on to that, or if they click and it expands, then they can click complete now. So from here, it's this is completely custom. So this is what you're setting up in your custom form here under your tasks. I've done just a really simple example here. So this is an example response, and then it does tell them they'll be notified when the planner has reviewed your answer. Click complete, and you'll see that it kind of goes orange. They can always go in to show completed to see it there. And so from here, it's warning them that it's pending planner review. And then you're going to get a message that says that you need to come in and look at some pending responses. So you're going to click on your responses here. And so here we've got Jenny who's registered, and you're going to click on planner review and you're going to say, amazing, can't wait to have you join. Click below to pay your deposit and lock in your spot. So this is the message that's going to your traveler. This is a message you can leave for yourself. Spoke to him on the phone, maybe. Whatever your message is to yourself, this is something that your travelers will not see. This is a message that is being sent to your traveler. Now, in this case, you do want to send a confirmation because you want to let them know that you've approved them and that they can now pay their deposit. You click update, and that will actually send an email to them, prompting them with the instructions that you've given them. And so you can see that the message was sent. So here you can see that that was sent to them. And if you want to see whether or not they've clicked on that, you can always come in here and see. So the email was sent on this date and they have not yet viewed the trip. So when Jenny clicks on that email and views the trip page, you're going to see this date set. So that's how you know they've actually reacted to that message. If they haven't reacted, you can always send them another message or you can call them. So if you wanted to, since you might be collecting phone number, if you are collecting phone number, you can call them and that information will either be here on their trip board if you collect it on the reg form, or it will be down here in your application form if that's where you've ask them for it. So depending on whether or not you put it on the reg form or you put it into the actual application form. Now from there, when they click back in, they're going to be, here, I'll just refresh this. When they click on that email, it's going to take them back here. And actually, I think it's going to take them to here. And from here, they can pay their deposit by clicking into the invoice or clicking on the Pay Now button. If they click Pay Now, it will immediately sort of prompt them to pay the $500 deposit. But if they click into invoice, they can choose between the rooms and explore from there. And they can either pay the deposit or the balance due. And again, clicking back into Pay Now, that's what pops up that dialogue. Now, from here, it's just a note that details you can also put in here: don't pay your deposit until your application is accepted. So there's a few places you can kind of let them know to not pay the deposit until it's accepted. The other option that you can do, if you don't want to sort of send them through this process on the same trip page, is you can actually have one trip set to brochure mode, which all it does is it collects. So I'm just going to show you the second option. You can switch to brochure mode on one trip, and then you can just remove that from there. So you're going to set up the trip page to just collect expressions of interest in the application. And so then it's going to immediately prompt them to complete that task after they've registered. So same process we described as before, but then instead of confirming on this trip and having them pay on the same trip, you're actually going to sort of transfer them over to another trip and send them a link to pay their deposit from that trip instead. So that's if you want to keep it very separate, because keep in mind that if you do keep them on the same trip, before I showed you, if the response is yes, you can attend, then the process I showed you is what I just showed you. But if you want to say no, Jenny can't come, you need to respond and say no, and then you're going to need to go into Manage People and edit Jenny and set her to declined. So we're just going to go in here and change to declined and update that. So now Jenny will not be prompted to pay, will not be sent any reminders, and is not going on the trip. So if you do manage it on the same trip, you're going to have to sort of decline the people that you don't approve to go on the trip, and then they're kind of mixed together on the same trip. So you have to decide, do you expect to get a lot of people you're going to decline? If you are, then my suggestion would be to have a brochure trip that just collects registrations and applications, and the ones who win, the ones you approve, I would actually then put them on the real trip that is set to bookings mode, and just move them over to that trip as and then send them a message. So basically you would go into that other trip, click add person and add them there, and then once you've added them, you're going to send them a message and that says you've been accepted to, right, and then say please click below to complete your deposit payment. So that's the two different options. One way keeps it all in one trip, which has its advantages, but if you have a lot of people that you expect to decline, then that could be a little annoying to have all those people in your list. The other way means you have two trips. You have one in brochure mode and one in bookings mode. And that just means you have that extra step of the people you do approve get moved over to that other one. So again, I think that model, the sort of two trips, one in brochure mode and one in bookings mode, makes sense if you expect to get a lot of applications but decline most of them. I think it makes more sense to have one trip, like I've just demonstrated here, if you expect to mostly accept people who express their interest and complete the form, because then you're not going to end up with a lot of declines. and it's just going to be easier to kind of process them in the one trip. So those are the two options that you have. And the general recommendation is to make sure that your text is clear. And so there's a couple of places you can do that. There's this one that shows up above the invoice. There's changing the task area to say apply, so it's clear that this is where they apply. And it's making sure that you're just letting them know that they need to apply before paying the deposit. So just making that clear through the process. And also my suggestion, if you are going to be using one trip with bookings mode, then let me just toggle this back. You want to make sure that you take off the automated reminders on deposit, because you don't want it to automatically remind them, because otherwise you might remind someone to pay a deposit who hasn't been approved yet. So in the case where you use one trip in bookings mode to do the application as well as the deposit, you'll want to turn off automated reminders for your deposit installment. But I would still suggest making it due maybe 8 days after registration, because you'll probably process the application within that time. And then you'll always want to set a due date on the remaining balance, and definitely turn on automated reminders for that one, because that should be set to like your hard deadline for the balance due. And by then you'll have decided who's coming and who isn't. So you can count on those automated reminders from there. So that's just a quick reminder on that one. And of course, same idea in reverse, which is that if you're setting up the application task, you want to make sure you have automated reminders turned on for this, because if someone registers but then doesn't complete the application, you want them to get a reminder to complete that application. So that's a couple of things to explore in terms of working through that process. And you get to decide whether or not you want it in one, or if you want it split, so they have one encounter, and then they'll never be prompted to pay and have to be told kind of don't pay until the application's done. If that doesn't feel right to you, then I would say then split them into two separate trips. Do one in brochure for the application, and then do one for their actual payment, and then use that one as the actual trip with all the detailed itineraries in it. So it could actually be a nice clean way to separate it, and doing the brochure mode, bookings mode, having two trips. So explore those two options and see which one works for you.